Good afternoon and welcome to IAB There, our weekly live stream in which we connect the digital advertising ecosystem. I'm Angelina Ang, VP of Measurement and Attribution at IAB. And in today's session, which is titled Using Data Science to Reconcile Multiple Partial Sources of Truth in Digital Media, we'll be discussing modern approaches to solving the challenges that marketers are facing with respect to increasing signal loss along the consumer journey. With that said, today we're excited to welcome to the show Josh Alvernia, CEO and co-founder of Clue, and Charles Manning, founder and CEO of Kochava. Josh is the CEO and co-founder of Clue, a leading data analytics and media solutions for insights-driven marketing across search, social, and programmatic channels. Following his extensive history in the media industry, including stints at Cara, Rocket Fuel, and MIQ, he identified a complexity gap between actionable insights and data. Alongside three partners, Josh recruited a world-class team of solution engineers, data scientists, and media specialists to build what was now become one of Canada's fastest growing startups. And then we also have Charles Manning, founder and CEO of Kochava, a real-time data solutions company for omni-channel attribution and measurement, trusted by top brands worldwide, a veteran of the digital advertising ecosystem industry. Charles is a member and contributor to the Forbes Technology Council. And for 20 years, he has been creating real-time data solutions for systems optimization, ranging from business service management to information technology to attribution analytics and blockchain solutions. Let's welcome Josh and Charles.
Hi.
Good day, gentlemen.
It's good to be here. Thanks, Angelina.
All right, so we have a lot to cover. Let me start first by congratulating Josh for some exciting recent news. Clue was recently shortlisted on the Ad Exchanger Best Use of Data category, and it was just announced that you're ranked number 11 on the 2022 report on business ranking of Canada's top growing companies. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, so Josh, you are not one of those executives that sits back or takes a 5,000-foot view of things. You have a more grassroots, hands-on, boots on the ground style of work, very similar to my style. Let's talk about that and how it has impacted your company and its approach to data.
I think some of the reasons why I do that is also because that's just a little bit of my comfort zone. But mainly, the reason why I think it's done well for me is because the challenge that Clue is tackling is oftentimes the data challenge in media. And I think it would be very, very hard to have a accurate and well-pointed 5,000-foot view or 5,000-foot plan if you didn't intrinsically understand the materials that you were working with to solve that challenge. So that's mainly why my style has evolved to become like that.
That's great. And Josh, Clue has also recently announced your status as a authorized agency partner with Kochava. So what does that mean for your community?
Yeah, it means that we did go through a moment of learning where we really now understand how to use Kochava to accomplish the ad acquisition campaign goal use case, or the mobile marketing use case. But it also means that there's an established relationship with Kochava. So my customers know that there's a joint effort between the service and the technology to take down their goals, and that there's already established practices for communications, and it just means that they can be way more assured that the best results are gonna happen.
And Charles, what does the Authorized Agency Partnership Program hope to establish in the market? Why did you guys decide to go and become an authorized agency partner?
Yeah, so Josh hit it right on the head, and that is that there are a number of things that you can do with our platform. Our team across our client success team and our Foundry team, they're professionals, they understand the product. But the reality is that agencies like Clue are trusted by their customers as a point of view setter and as a framework to say, how do we get best served? Because there's an existing longstanding relationship with Clue and their clients. And so part of the vision behind the Authorized Agency Partnership Program is how do we ensure that these talented select partners can be fully educated in all the capabilities of the platform, the tips and tricks that we use as a team, and kind of tactics that we use as an approach, whether it's related to Facebook modeled conversions and how that box balances with record level conversions, or SK ad network and changes that are forthcoming with 4 versus 3. The details really matter, and it's not sufficient enough to simply answer questions of the agency on behalf of an end client as they happen. It's much better to really hit the ground running and say, here's an established framework. We're in cahoots. We're in alignment. We're working collaboratively around kind of the longevity of all of these clients, and Clue, because of their success and their growth, really raised their profile of being an important authorized partner to be inclusive in the program.
Yeah, I mean, I found that, I came from the agency side and as well, and had, developed some agency partner programs. And I think one of the benefits is that, agencies like yours, Josh, you have more hands-on experience with exactly what problems or challenges that marketers are facing. And so therefore, it's a lot easier to put things into context, right? Than having a platform have that relationship with the marketer, because they may not be fully aware of some of the actual executional issues or solutions that you can apply based on the learnings that you have from other accounts that you work on, right?
Yeah, exactly. Really, there's 3 things that need to come together: the business imperative, the execution, and then the technology that helps all of that. And so if all 3 aren't communicating and adjusting and customizing the approach, then it's like this broken telephone game, where you end up getting locked into a very homogenized way of tackling a brand's challenge. And sometimes you can see that when technology companies have disassociated from the service part of their organization, where you would love to customize, you would love to really get teethy into the challenge and make this technology perfectly tailored and suited to the business challenge, but you just can't, because there's a human aspect that has to happen. And I think the agency partner program, it does help us understand what we can do with the technology to be better communicators and be that kind of intermediary, but it also just establishes the precedent that collaboration is going to happen. And it's not just an extra thing, it's intrinsically part of the service, the technology, the partnership.
And then you can also, I would assume, right, if you're representing a variety of different clients, and Charles, your team hears what is actually bubbling up across multiple agencies, that helps you guys prioritize some of the work that needs to get done, right, on your side?
100%. I mean, the point of view of direct clients that have brought ad buying in-house is fundamentally different, but also very similar to an agency who's doing that on behalf of brands. The reverb effect of working with an agency like Clue is that not only does it serve one client, it serves any one of their clients that either use Kochava already or potentially have needs for more of a sophisticated technology approach that is consistent with what we provide. And then it arms the partner, Clue, to really leverage that and to serve their clients better. So that's 100% on point.
Great. So let's talk about overcoming some brand challenges as they relate to digital marketing success. When we talk about brands making use of agencies and technology solutions to overcome some challenges that marketers are facing today, what are the things that we're talking about? So, talk about what are some, what are clients looking for right now?
Charles, would you like to go first?
No, you go first, Josh.
Okay. So the main thing that I'm very, very focused on right now is the issue of signal loss. There was a very easy to implement tool, which was the Pixel, which would allow you to connect your first party asset to all of these different media platforms, and it would enable audience segmentation and anti-targeting and attribution and measurements and all of these wonderful things, and it connected to a wide variety, and it was very wonderfully simplistic, even if maybe intrinsically flawed from the consumer perspective and from the privacy perspective and the regulations perspective. But now marketers don't want to lose that functionality. They don't want to lose all of the tools and tricks that they had to drive efficiency and performance. And the reason why digital media is so massive today, it's because it allows you to really justify your work towards the bottom line and become a profit driving center rather than a cost center. So how do you use technology to replace the cookie and to keep all of those things together? That's the main thing that I think is probably number one and should be really focused on in the next 14 months ahead of 2024.
I would echo that 100%. I would also augment it with this world that Josh just outlined with signal loss. The reason why that matters, and for those of us in the ad tech ecosystem, we all intrinsically know this. Brands don't necessarily know this out of hand. But at the end of the day, the signal drives indication as to whether or not a campaign is backing out. If a campaign is backing out, you put more money to work. And that's really the point Josh is making about it's a profit center, not a cost center. Mm-hmm. How do you drive more revenue with this marketing investment that's being made? And in a world of omnichannel, that's even more pronounced because there are certain limitations around iOS, the advent of iOS 14.5, that are different than on Android. And Android also is going to be changing in the coming months and quarters and years with regard to Privacy Sandbox. There's a large movement where brands, because of the change of signal around iOS, is actually allocating more investment dollars into Apple search ads. And it has its own metaphor of how those investment dollars are backing out. And so synthesizing all those things in concert as a big mosaic against the brand's macro goals is really job one at the agency level or at the executive level within the brand. And then how do you get there in a repeatable, consistent, efficient fashion is really where the technology comes into play, and it speaks volumes about the value of the relationship and the partnership.
So Charles, when these changes happen, right, is there advanced notice and are your teams working on these solutions ahead of time, or is it done after the fact because of such what I'll call, the closed lip syndrome that many of these big tech companies, like they don't provide much detail until things roll out. So how much in advance are you preparing for these changes? And then how quickly can you adapt to when these changes go out into market?
Yeah, the great thing about the advertising ecosystem and ad tech in particular is that the whole ecosystem changes every 6 months. And so quite literally, if you thought you weren't doing a good enough job the last time a technology shift happened, you can always get better the next time the shift happens again. And that seems to have been going on for years now, which is just remarkable when you think about it. It's a very high-paced environment. I'll say, to answer your question specifically, different companies behave differently. Our approach with, say, for example, a Meta or a Google or a Snap, some of these larger O&O platforms that are classified as self-attributing networks, they matter so much that you really have to make sure you've got continuity of signal with them. They will give Kochava early insight of changes happening, and they will give us windows of opportunity to support those capabilities. And we've always been very good at being on top of that, but they will hamstring our ability to talk about it until they announce. And so then it becomes a race to how quickly can we arm our team after having implemented in accordance with the obligations and expectations and opportunities around that particular partner, to ensure that the partners, the agency partners, et cetera, aren't feeling like they're behind the gun. That, we've already implemented all these things. Here are the 7 steps. How do we support you for comms that are proactive or responsive, depending on that particular partner? Juxtapose that with how Apple has rolled out some of their changes. They've been super articulate of the changes thematically, but then lacking implementation detail until the day it ships.
Yep.
So that's a very different equation, and so the whole industry knows generally what's going to change, but the how really matters. And I'll use a case in point, not to make anyone's ears bleed, but the details really matter. And I think you brought that out, and Angelina, in this former question. The differences in SCAD3, SKAd Network 3.0 versus 4.0 are pretty material, and it actually brings really great opportunity for marketers in a way that hasn't been in the past. One of those changes is, web to app measurement, which was not possible in the past. That's a simple tick box. Oh, that's great. Web to app will now work. Easy for the whole ecosystem to understand. Just show me how. Let's walk through the details. But then there's things like fine versus coarse grain measurements that are happening on the first post back within the first 2 days, the second post back within the first 7, and the third thereafter. When do they come out? We don't yet know. We won't know until it's actually in the flesh and it's actually deployed, and that's going to be sometime by end of year. And so you have to be ready with a kind of catcher's mitt of preparation, but with some flexibility on exactly what the implementation details could render.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Next question. Go
just
ahead.
If I could add to that, and then it has actually just one final collateral effect, is that brand first-party assets have to connect with the ecosystem then of like the media ecosystem, and then the technology of Kochava, and then the brand's first-party assets have to connect. And so there's this large effect that it's a little sad for brands, because there is material financial implications to this telephone effect that happens. And so, this leads into, I guess, some of the work that we try to do on getting brand assets into the best quality of format so that they're dynamic in how they work with all of this technology.
Well, it's also like, how do you, or not how do you, but one of your main responsibilities is to help educate them about what these changes are. But at the same time, it's like, well, what's the impact? And we're not quite sure, right? And so we kind of have there's a wait and see kind of, period, and then figure out what to do right afterwards, right? So is this impacting CPM rates? Is this impacting reach? How have your conversions been affected, and all of that stuff? And so I think that's the frustrating part of it for a brand, because once you're used to a certain set of numbers and how your campaigns are performing, and then all of a sudden numbers change drastically, and you have to kind of like help them fill in the gap. But
yeah, a great case in point, Angelina, on that very point. And this is a little bit looking through the rearview mirror as opposed to forward looking, but the lessons pertain. When 14.5 went out the door, it was very clear ATT was a new regime that was going to be used. Everyone knew. They knew it for some time. It was very clear that SKAd Network was going to be the approach. If ATT is opted in or not opted in, regardless, it was going to be there, a privacy-safe, deterministic approach to attribution. What was not clear was that Apple was not going to, in fact, enforce those rules. And so there was this assumption that this was the new regime and this is how it's going to work. And then what ended up happening was, because of the absence of enforcement, probabilistic attribution remained with certain partners, but not with others. And when you look at two partners and whether or not their media is backing out, probabilistic is almost always going to back out far better than an SKAd Network driven campaign only. And that has that brings up all sorts of questions around credibility and effectiveness and so forth. And so that, I would argue, that's what most of 2021 and 2022 was spent discussing with brands, well, yeah, these are the rules, but they're not being enforced, but they will be. Trust me, at some point they will be. And how that'll get enforced, we're not sure, but you want to be on the safe side of this equation, and this is why, et cetera.
Yeah, and we're facing that right now with Privacy Sandbox, right? With Android, with Chrome
Precisely.
desktop. But kind of, following this logic of thought, right? Josh, you've been attributed with using that crawl, walk, run approach with your clients when it comes to establishing digital readiness and achieving results. Can you talk a little about what that means? Like how have you been working with clients and getting them to that state?
Yeah. So it usually comes from the symptom of campaign performance changing dramatically. So when people are like, we don't actually fully understand the total implications, there's actually some really good ways that you can understand it. For example, a really easy way is you just go into Facebook Business Manager, you go to events, you go to your web pixel, because the web has this little uncanny ability to know that the browser version is iOS, but it'll have no device information on the other column. And CDPs often say you'll have 15% better performance by adapting into this, but that's because oftentimes my customers, 15% of their traffic is from Apple devices. But some of my customers, like 52% of their traffic is Apple devices. And that changes your CPA from $30 to $150. And I'm speaking from experience there. So usually the crawl, walk, run approach is this. First and foremost, your conversion event. You need to replace the pixel with first-party data. So, and that's usually PII. The crazy thing is a cookie ID needs to be replaced with email address, phone number, first name, last name, like physical address. It's insane that one beautifully automated field has to be replaced with 10, 12 fields. Or, usually the crawl approach is just the email, right? As the kind of the skeleton key for first party data and the internet. And you just overcome signal loss with the conversion event you're optimizing to. But then walk is you're seeing signal loss with the events you were using for retargeting, the events you were using for lookalike modeling, the events you were using to understand funnel and mixed media modeling, and all of these things are starting to receive loss. So then the walk approach is, I need to format my assets in a way that can distribute data to more than just my conversion event, to all of my events, or as much as my journey I can. I need to connect it to partners. All of the partners have different formats to their APIs, different ways. So, platforms like Kochava make that easier to do. And then the run approach would be, okay, now I want to create predictive audiences. Now I want to create personalized messages because I have this really well-maintained first-party data set and it's connected properly. And I've optimized the match rates. So, the loss in comparison to cookies went from only a 50% match rate to an 89% match rate. And thus I'm only suffering maybe 11% in comparison. And this is this kind of approach, but it really comes back to, does the marketing team at the brand have support from their developers? Do they have support from their internal teams? How does Clue give them the staff that they need to accomplish this task? And how do we navigate them through the journey that now it's not this holistic singular approach of just placing a pixel that can easily be generated from a platform. It is, how are you maintaining your data? How are you creating an audible way, an auditable way, so that if somebody's wondering how you're gaining consent and whether or not you're enabling people to opt out and opt in, there's like a way that you can look and showcase that you're maintaining data properly. There's a lot more to it than just Google Tag Manager anymore, which is kind of crazy.
Now, we also heard that, Josh, that that Clue is going to be releasing a report this week in collaboration with DigiDay on the topic of conversion API. Why do you think this is an important topic for marketers today?
Well, we're just moving from automated triggering based on a client-side tag to you need to maintain your data set and you need to deliver that to a media platform or any of the platforms you're using in your marketing stack, server to server, or you are transferring to them an actual file, and that file needs to be formatted properly so that their platform can interpret it and convert it into audience segments, measurement reports, all of that type of stuff. So nobody was really tackling this challenge because it is a little bit confusing, and there is a lot of variation in the industry, especially as all platforms are now kind of developing their conversion APIs. So we wanted to plant our flag in that. And we have kind of created a bridge. Sometimes customers, before they get into a Kochava, before they get into a CDP, they want to kind of dip their toes in the water. And so we've ended up creating our own little ecosystem of maintained APIs that allow them at least to overcome the crawl aspect of how do I just start sending my data to replace the conversion event, at least, that I'm really focusing my campaigns on, and start to get my data assets in place. And then usually after that, it's like, okay, I want to keep going. I want more. This is exciting. And then that's usually when another more robust technology needs to come into place. So all of it's kind of coming together, culminating in this report that we've authored with DigiDay.
Well, that's great. I think, I'm fascinated to read up on it. It actually aligns really well with some of the work that we're doing at IAB and IAB Tech Lab. So for those that are unfamiliar, we have the IAB Tech Lab is working on a PETS project, so privacy enhancing technologies, where we're evaluating some of the features and functionalities such as SKAd network and privacy sandbox, and looking at the data points that they provide, and can we actually, give some insights into and establish what some of those guidance and guardrails are going to look like, and then standardizing data clean rooms, right? So coming up with what are the actual APIs that would help out both of you guys, right, or both your organizations as well as your clients around what are the standard inputs and outputs required in order for organizations to actually evaluate and understand, how when combining all of that data together, what's working, what's not working. So sounds like great work. So let's move on because we only have a few more minutes. Let's talk about emerging opportunities and or warnings. Well, what are some of the emerging opportunities that either of you are seeing related to the shifting tides of digital media? Example, CTV, Google Performance Max, Meta's Advantage Plus. Any insights to those opportunities?
Well, from our perspective, we're seeing a massive shift in media dollars on the iOS side in two primary places. One is ASA, so Apple Search Ads. Because it is a very straightforward approach to having some semblance of targeting based on demo and region and a variety of other details around that ASA provides, and the ability to conquest keywords and really support both top of funnel and bottom of funnel initiatives around that media spend. Hearing a lot about that across the industry. That's not necessarily new news, but we're very much seeing that. And we built a product last year called Search Ads Maven, which is a tool to help with Apple Search Ads buying because of that. And eager to work with partners like Clue and others to help facilitate how that can be a difference maker for their clients. The second big thing is CTV. You mentioned this. I would probably expand that to CTV and OTT. So whether it's Vizio or LG, Amazon Fire, Roku, a variety of others, a large amount of media spend that previously was kind of allocated to third-party ad networks for iOS is now driving towards CTV. And the biggest question our customers ask is, I want to put that money there, but I now need to tie my exposure data from CTV and OTT to my activity data, which then is related to conversion candidacy with regard to a mobile device or a desktop device, largely mobile. And so we've provided a real end-to-end solution for that, not only for advertisers, but also for publishers who want to become a walled garden quickly. So we've got a publisher suite product that serves the CTV space and the OTT space. I suspect that we're going to see a 30 to 40 different walled gardens in this kind of streaming OTT world start to kick off. We're already seeing that happen, and as that happens, media dollars are going to follow that because there's a desire for it, and it kind of sidesteps the limitations that iOS only delivers if you're just driving audience growth from iOS on iOS. In this case, it's from CTV to iOS.
Mhm.
So two big trends that I'm seeing out there. I don't want to take all of the commentary. I'd love to hear what Josh is also seeing.
Yeah, so Josh, are you seeing increase in especially ASA? I mean,
Yes.
fascinated about that.
Yeah, well, anything post-click is easier than view-through attribution, 1000%. So anything that drives a click will be easier to tie, easier to attach to a conversion event if somebody lands from the place and converts immediately within there rather than leaves the environment and has to come back and have to do that. And CTV also is very strong because Roku has a pretty consistent identity network. And so will a lot of these players that own the device that the thing is streaming on. And so there's amazing things there. One thing that's a little further away that I really think is an interesting proposition when you just think about the supply or like the exchange-based dynamics is that if when an ID is not present in the bid stream, the value of that impression decreases by like 65%. It becomes so cheap. But if you were to say that somehow you were able to know that that user is the right user, you're getting a steal. So that's the whole AI piece of bidding models and using the 30% of the ecosystem that you can measure to affect the 70% in how you buy there. So using things like single dimensional bid modeling and multi-dimension bid modeling to say, all right, when I've had attribution, this website plus this location plus these user agent settings plus all of these other settings relate to a 250% increase that the conversion event is likely to happen. And so my bid should be X with the benefits, the windfall of a decreased price. I feel like there's so much there. I just think it's still very, very new to the industry and how that gets used, mainly in the way that it gets communicated as effective, because the measurement is the intrinsic part of getting that right and communicating that to brand leadership. But there's something there, and bid modeling is something that Clue is really, really focused on.
Great. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We are at time. I really appreciate you joining us today. And I, fascinated to learn more. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. I think we're all on LinkedIn and on Twitter. So I'm Angelina Eng. Thank you everyone for watching. And again, thank you, Josh and Charles.
Thank you.
Thank you.